I bet you this old burned out heap would run. So you'd be shifting it by hand right now, so you'll see no speedo, that burned out.
As I look for a better way to get through another boring day, oh yeah.
Not a good sign.
I turn to you for a little while, hoping to catch a forbidden smile, oh yeah.
This thing is straight Mad Max. Okay, so now that I have the Big Bear torn down, the motor split, and I know what's going on within that motor, we're coming around to the parts quad. Now this guy cranks fine, but I'm told that there's a snapped off stud in the head under here. But I think what we're going to do is see if we can get this motor to start and run and do an inspection there to figure out if we're just going to do a swap. I know there's a new starter on it, but let's set up, take all these plastics off and take a look and see if perhaps all I need to do is swap my other exhaust onto here, see if it'll fire. Yep, that top right one is apparently snapped off, but let me see if I can put a single stud in. And while we're doing this, let's check this oil. It's a little weird here. My guess is this was put on here because they had lost their copper crush washers. That's not a crush washer on there. Well, I think I'm going to take this whole air box off by this one screw. Maybe put a pod or something on here. Not quite sure what the deal is here, but this carb intake is well, it's not very good. So there's the good one. And this is just some invented something. So I'm going to take this one off and take this other side off the carb. So we have a good air intake. I can't find any markings on this carb, so I'm suspecting knockoff. You know, I'm noticing something else. This actually doesn't look like the kind of bolt that would feed oil. Let's get in here. You know, so this motor caught fire, obviously, but this right here could have been one of the reasons, if it wasn't feeding oil to cool the engine. You'd think something worse would happen than catching fire through a really hot running exhaust. Oh, okay. This is weird though. Did they drill this? No, I guess that's just not used to seeing that. I'm not used to seeing that, but that is that would work. Just literally some of the jankiest. Oof. I think these are all too big for these screws. Oh boy. Get a zip tie for that. Whew. All right, 2 amps. It's taking a charge. Great. Brand new F93 rec gas. I can't do it without a filter. My OCD will get the better of me. I'm gonna put a filter on this line. Yeah, I'm okay with a cheap filter on this, but I can't. I gotta have a filter on there so I can see what's coming through. So let's try this. Ooh. This is what I want to know, is this petcock is really beat. So I want to know if, let's see, fuel flow that way. Give me something so this tank doesn't try and fly off. And then we are going to put my other exhaust on here. Good enough. All right, so to my knowledge, this is a motor that ran prior to it catching fire. I'm going to try and turn it over. I do have a fire extinguisher handy just on the inside of my shed door there, just in case. So here's where we stand. Swapped in the exhaust that I had rebuilt, snapped off bolt in here, so I've just got one holding it, coupled in, and of course snapped off head bolt. So I've only got one holding it in there. We've checked oil, haven't checked diff fluid, and we don't have high-low or reverse. We just have whatever gear we put it into because the fire burned out this guy. So you'd be shifting it by hand right now. So we'll see where we are. No speedo, that burned out. If she fires. I got neutral. I got crank. I mean, this battery is tremendously undersized for cold cranking amps. Let's check for spark. No spark. Crank, no spark. So quick visual inspection, here's what I've found. This was attached to the coil, but you see how corroded out this is. I don't know if this ground is doing anything of value. So we're gonna have to get into the harness here, find some clean wire, splice that in, replace that, test again. All right, took a beat and did the troubleshooting that I've done before, troubleshooting no spark. Link to that video if anybody's interested. Did that one. Did that one on the other Big Bear 4-wheel drive. That one had the troubleshoot no spark there. So having done, well, here's what we found going through the process. Underneath here, the wire that grounds out to the back side of the coil was all bad news. So spliced in a new wire. Then found a bad CDI at the tail end of troubleshooting. So swapped in a knockoff CDI. We have sparks. So now we're about to see if she will start. Here we go. Well, started up just fine there. To note, this little Mighty Max battery is way too small. Not enough cranking amps on there to turn this motor over. And even when I had it set on 75 amps for my battery charger, still could barely crank it. I popped in my my portable jump back, turned it right over, started it right out. This is a 4 amp hour battery. I don't know what it has for cranking amps on here. I think the spec calls for a 14 amp hour battery. That's just way too small. Interestingly, it was on choke and it surged and died there, but decompression lever is just not doing anything of value there. I'm not sure it's doing anything. I'm gonna take the tank off and take the valve covers off and take a look. But really good sign, that just fired fine. I bet you this old burned out heap would run. Wow, so pausing for a second, burned out heap, we would need to run this thing. Front brakes are shot. I'd have to find or fab a muffler and probably replace the high-low range cable. I have a spare CDI, so cable, find a muffler, and if I wanted front brakes. You know what else I noticed? There's a full skid plate on this guy. It'll be interesting to see what kind of shape that's in as I get a little further in here, because that'd be a nice one to put on the finished product. But let me take a look at what's going on with that decompression lever. Not a good sign when somebody's already been through them with a grinder. And this one's been soaking an easy out, but also been through with a grinder, but trying to get on it, whole head wants to separate, which could be bad. Always gets risky when you gotta bang in your bolt extractor. Whoa. Wasn't expecting that to pull apart in my hands. This nut is sheared off. This should be longer. That's why this thing is flapping. It's falling out. Look at that. Let's see if we have a replacement. All right. There's my sheared one. I'm going to use this. It's an M6 one pitch. Oh. I'd prefer a hex head, but for what we're going to do now, test this out, I think that's going to be okay. All right, I don't necessarily recommend doing this one for the long term. I just red Loctited this M6 one pitch in there so that I can get this armature working back the way it was supposed to. So she only wants to run on choke right now, which is understandable considering I didn't clean that carb. It could be plugged up as heck. And without the airbox, it's running a straight pod. It could be leaning everything out. So it's all right for the moment. I'm just listening to this motor. Sounds good. I'm also watching to make sure it doesn't catch fire. Like that. That was melting. Yeah, all right, some of the wiring was actually hanging on the exhaust, so glad I checked. I could start to smell that burning plastic kind of smell. Man, she's just smoking off. Burned on plastic, dripping oil. I really want to know if she'll ride though. Still hoping to take it for a little spin, but noticed it was blowing oil out the top of the timing chain cap. And this gasket is just about chomped through and stretched. I can't get it to sit down in here to get a good seal, so I'm going to pull one off the other quad for the moment. This thing is straight Mad Max. Like a straight tank. Whoa! This thing's a beast. Uh-oh. Oh, ran out of road. All right, hit a ATV traffic jam there. Everything all piled up, but wow. For a burned out Big Bear, I'm gonna offer a guess on how this caught fire. While it was idling, the amount of heat coming up the left-hand side here, it got real hot here. So I went and I grabbed the heat shield off of the other one, strapped it on, because otherwise there was a lot of heat radiating. So I would venture to guess that this heat shield was taken off while they were doing some work. They didn't put it back on. The plastics were sitting right here, and it just melted and caught from there. Even now, I mean, it's warm. This bar is warm to the touch. So there's heat coming up. Really though, you'd be riding. I would suggest you go a little further and replace the boot. This boot's smoked as well. Look at that. This bodes bad. That looks like shot bearings in the rear end here. Oh, and I think that is, no, this one's the fill. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so that's it for now. Got to figure out next steps. Ultimately, I don't think I'll be able to run both of these. I think this is still going to remain a parts quad. Yeah, boy, I don't know. Sometimes I have crazy moments. We'll see. We'll see. I guess I rule nothing out. But the next thing we got to figure out is we got to get the original one, the one from my mom's, put back together. So we got to pillage the right parts out of here, which is looking to be the motor. Kind of impressed after burning out. She still runs.